friendship that'll never ever end.
Run! It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 773. Dot in that neighborhood, my brothers and sisters. Now, as y'all know, every Wednesday we go back to Mike from that chapter. But this Wednesday, well, I shall say, as of this recording that I'm doing, Mike has not released a new video, so instead, we gonna go back to the Coffee Man, better known as Adrian from Coffeehouse Crime. Back to Coffeehouse Crime Bean Team. It has been a while since we last went to the Coffee Man, and the title of the video is Teen Murders Family for His Cartoon Lover. Then cops checked his computer. This title was just so freaking bizarre. What is this cartoon lover? Did he literally fall in love with a fictional cartoon character, and for some reason the cartoon character in his mind made him believe that he should murder his family? Or was this cartoon character a real person that was hiding behind this avatar online? I don't know, Bean Team, but my mind, as you can see, is already thinking here, there, and everywhere. But we about to see. But before we see, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need. Please, we are back to Adrian from Coffeehouse Crime. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
On June 30th, my sister decided to make the only correct choices in episode 1 of season 1 of The Walking Dead games. And for that, her face will be mutilated further than necessary.
Okay, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something later on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence.
I am the chosen one, chosen by Clementine.
You surprised me. Thought you were someone else.
I am guided, as Christians are guided by Jesus Christ.
Yes, we've got a male here. He's presented himself to us. Can we just get another unit down here, please?
There will be no more killings of Larrys in front of Clementine, no more killings of St. John's in front of Clementine, and overall Clementine's content will be preserved, maximised. That's the message I want to give out.
When Nicholas Prosper uploaded this video declaring his love and allegiance to a fictitious character from The Walking Dead, it was already too late. His actions, spanning deep into the classification of illegal, had resulted in not one or two, but several lives lost. And among the wreckage, one of those driving forces behind his violent spree was obsession. This is the story about a teen who had an obsession with a cartoon character, an obsession with attention, and, most terrifyingly, an obsession with infamy. And if you add detachment from reality to the mix, alongside a spiral so steep that no one saw it coming, well, you have a recipe for disaster. Welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today we're looking at the disturbing case of Nicholas Prosper. Before we begin, if you'd like to see more true crime, strange and chilling stories, then please remember to subscribe, as it really does help the channel out. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee. This is the case of Nicholas Prosper.
Get whatever you may need. And I just gotta point out the reason I was looking all crazy is because, being team, I know Clementine. I have played the whole Walking Dead series. I think it was 4 of them in all. You know what I'm saying? Following the Clementine story. They did have spin-offs and all that. But just following the Clementine story. And I played all of it, and I don't understand like why he have this obsession with her and the stuff he was talking about. Like, Clementine was not a regular girl. I'm not finna go through all the details. If you don't know, you don't know. If you know, you know. But she wasn't no type of person in the game that other people looked up to as Jesus Christ or something. Like, I don't know what he got going on, big team. But let's find out.
Welcome to Luton, folks. So, where do we begin? Well, Luton is one of those towns that seems to always come up in the same breath as trouble. It sits just north of London, close enough to feel the capital's shadow, but far enough to be forgotten. Once known for its booming hat industry and Vauxhall car production, those days are now sadly long gone, and what is left is a town struggling to find its newfound footing. Walk through the town centre and you will see exactly what I mean. Boarded up shops and pound stores are found all over, and there is a general sense that things are not what they used to be. Luton has one of the most diverse populations in the country, and while that does bring culture and character, it has also been a flashpoint for tension over the years, socially, politically, and even from a religious perspective too. Extremism, gang activity, and knife crime are, sadly, all parts of the local vocabulary now, and many people across the UK see Luton as one of the most dangerous places to live. It also doesn't help that it's a very ugly place too. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. The markets still run, kids still go to school, and families do what they can. But there is certainly an edge here, a heaviness. And although people keep their heads down and get on with their lives, this is a place where things can go wrong very quickly. And in September of 2024, that is precisely what happened. Behind the front door of a quiet apartment, 19-year-old Nicholas Prosper wasn't only slipping through the cracks, but he was planning something unthinkable. And the worst part is that nobody saw it coming. And so, on that note, meet Nicholas. Now, at first glance, Nicholas might seem like your average teenage boy. Born on December the 18th, 2005, and raised in Luton, he grew up in a modest apartment with his mother, Juliana Falcon, and his 2 younger siblings, Kyle and Giselle. It's worth highlighting that his parents would unfortunately divorce when he was only 4 years old, which, of course, would be sure to leave a mark on his personality. But otherwise, and to the outside world, they were just a typical working-class family. Not particularly wealthy, but close-knit and, by all appearances, loving. So, how would I describe Nicholas? Well, he appeared to be smart, academically capable, curious, and also often absorbed in his own world. He didn't seem to cause any trouble, and didn't act out in ways that drew any sort of concern. But even then, there was something that was both inward and awkward about him. He didn't socialize that much, and didn't seem to connect easily with other people his age. Teachers would later describe him as well-behaved but withdrawn, someone who kept to himself and rarely opened up. In addition to this, he had a deep interest in computers and technology, and would often spend more than several hours online every day. And it turns out, in a digital world where isolation can breed obsession, his dark and weird interests would slowly become a coping mechanism. You see, a few years ago, Nicholas was not violent, at least not outwardly, but what was clear is that he was detached. Taking a brief step back for a moment and taking a look at his family, his mother Juliana was said to be not only supportive, but a fantastic parent. However faint they may be, it is likely that she probably saw the signs that her son was into some weird stuff. And I know I haven't actually shared what he was into yet, but just think of the worst things imaginable. Honestly, this guy is someone that you do not want in your life. Now, Juliana likely had no idea how evil and disgusting her son's world had become. And nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen. Because behind his silence, something darker had begun to take shape. Something that he hid from everyone. So, how does an average teenager become a would-be mass murderer? Well, all of that began on the internet. Now, I don't need to tell you how dangerous the internet can be. I mean, we are quite literally talking about it in this case. Which is precisely why I've decided to team up with NordVPN to sponsor this video.
Coffee Man just transitioned into his commercial, y'all. But This dude right here, okay, we understand that he was an introvert, you know, didn't really socialize with a lot of people, and he was into his computer and video games, but I just feel like it's still something mental, like he got mental issues in his head, regardless of if he was socializing with people or not, to decide to do what the freak he did, being team. Let's see if we can, okay, we already passed commercials. Let me take it back right here. Let's go.
Crime. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you folks for supporting us content creators, which helps us make more videos for you. So, back to the story, let's take a look at Nicholas's hideous obsessions.
Back to it.
Now, I'm sure I don't need to tell any of you this, but the internet is one of humankind's greatest inventions. A place of endless knowledge, connection, and creativity, but in the same breath, is also a gateway to obsession, radicalization, and isolation. When in the wrong hands, the internet is certainly capable of shaping monsters. That infinite pool of both knowledge and creativity can be used in sick and tormented ways. And for Nicholas Prosper, that is precisely what would happen. This is the sort of thing that I hate talking about, but it turns out that Nicholas enjoyed watching content involving children in the most disgusting of ways. In fact, he was so far down the road with it that he was even banned from multiple websites after expressing his desires. To make matters worse, it didn't stop there either, because it appears that that sort of fascination extended to animals and corpses too. Things would worsen throughout 2023. Nicholas spent countless hours engrossed in violent content, particularly fixated on mass shootings like Sandy Hook and Columbine. In fact, he would even begin to search for graphic images of murder victims, look up detailed reports of past shootings, and even participated in forums which glorified them. He meticulously studied the logistics of past attacks, learning from their own mistakes to plan a more, quote, effective massacre, one that he was beginning to wish that he could be responsible for. As
You see what I'm saying, big team? Like this, him being an introvert and all that ain't got nothing to do with what the freaky going on. Okay, maybe it may have a little to do with it, but this dude just mentally ill anyway. You know what I'm saying, man? Look at the shit. I'm sorry, I gotta go and let a cuss word out. Look at the effing shit that he's searching on the internet, being team. This dude is a freaking mass murderer waiting to happen, and it's so sad because we know about this in hindsight, because we also know that he did carry out these murders. And I'm still interested to see why Clementine was the one who made him do it. Still ain't got that answer yet, but let's keep going.
You can imagine, this virtual echo chamber not only desensitized him to violence, but it also fueled his desire to outdo previous mass murderers. And over time, he would become vocal about it too. In one of his online videos, Nick wore a black and yellow outfit while he mimicked the shooters he idolized. In fact, he even went as far to express his own desire to surpass their death tolls. As Nicholas delved deeper into these online communities, he became increasingly isolated from the real world. He withdrew from friends and family, and spent most of his time alone in his room. His interactions with other people dwindled, and he became detached from reality. It turns out that the isolation was not only social, but emotional too, as moving forward, he showed little empathy or connection to anyone around him. And although his family did notice these changes in his behavior, they were completely unaware of the extent of his radicalization. To them, he was merely a quiet and introverted teenager. However, in reality, he was gushing over violent fantasies. It is worth saying that Nicholas's transformation was not sudden or spontaneous. In my opinion, there were several factors at play here. Over time, his curiosity would lead him to the darkest corners of the internet, and meanwhile, his lack of interest in the real world would slowly detach him from reality. And to add to these two already pertinent issues came one other big problem. Nicholas never had a moral compass. You see, Nicholas had the means to find this content online, but then again, so does everybody. It's just that any normal person would simply not want to. But not for Nicholas. He had a forever hungry desire. Not only that, but he was becoming obsessed with infamy too, as we have seen in many other cases on this channel. And that is something that he did not want to stop. By June of 2023, Nicholas had abandoned his education and stopped attending classes. And once he was kicked out of school for his lack of attendance, he then chose to slump in his bedroom and barely made any effort to go outside. He existed in an online dominant world, and apart from attending a gym and working part-time at a supermarket, he chose to have little real-life contact with other people. And although this job of his was a good start, he would eventually be fired only a few months later. Over the course of the next year, Nicholas's twisted fantasies slowly turned into plans, and that is when he started plotting an attack on St. Joseph's Catholic Primary School. No surprise, that being the one that he used to attend. It's worth highlighting here that there were no ill feelings towards the school, its teachers, or its students. Nicholas just merely wanted to cause harm. The reason why he chose this school was simple. It was that he was familiar with its layout and its routines. Seeing Adam Lanza as a role model, Nicholas's goal was to kill at least 34 individuals, so that he could go down in history as someone who exceeded the death tolls of the Virginia Tech shootings. In the months that followed, and under the guise of being a parent, he phoned the school to inquire about their daily schedule, hoping that he could then map out the routines of children and staff. And moving forward, only weeks later, he would also carry out a disturbing level of reconnaissance. He scrutinized the school's website, saving images of both pupils and teachers, and collecting faces like they were targets. He would even sketch out the early years classrooms, meticulously mapping all of it out in his own notes. And right next to that hand-drawn layout, he scribbled the chilling words, "Kill all," just to add a sprinkle of cringe to the mix. But Nicholas would also select Friday the 13th of September 2024 as the date of his attack, believing that this would add some sort of notoriety to his actions. And here comes the tricky part of his plan, which surprisingly he pulled off. To execute his plan, he needed a gun, and if he wanted one of those, well, he would have to forge a firearms license. And so that is precisely what Nicholas did, with a fake deputy signature and address to match. And as it turns out, that would work for him. He then successfully purchased a firearm online, claiming that he needed it for clay pigeon shooting. He also designed a very specific outfit that he would wear during the attack, aiming to create a recognizable image that associated him with the massacre. And if you're wondering, yes, it is that awful black and yellow costume.
I'm talking about awful ass fucking costume. Just as awful as he is. This man got me pissed off, being team. And the reason he got me pissed off because he is one of those ones that literally, like, it's people out here being team. It's hard for me to believe it, but we hearing a story about it and it's just life. It's just the facts. It's people out here who really like love this serial killing type of ish and so invested in it and so enthralled by it and get so happy and giddy till they want to do it themselves. They want to be the next big serial killer in the world, to be known. They want to be famous off this ish. You know what I'm saying, man? That is so freaking crazy to me. And I'm gonna tell you what vibes he giving off to me now. Just hearing everything about how he was setting this up. He doing it on Friday the 13th. All this and that. He want his number to be bigger than the Virginia Tech killings. Like he just want to set a new record and all this and that. He giving me vibes of, and I can't remember the dude's name, but I know y'all know what I'm talking about. The Joker. The dude who killed, went into the theaters at the, I think that was the Dark Knight Rises. It was a Batman movie that came out in the movie theater, and dude went up there and shot it up. And he had like his hair was orange, and he was dressed in technical gear. You know what I'm saying? Like some of these people be so prepared for this craziness, and this is just another example. Let's go, y'all. Good video, crazy video.
Now, before we go any further, there is one other obsession that Nicholas seemed to harbour, and this is a weird one. Nicholas had a deep fixation over Clementine, a fictitious young girl from the video game The Walking Dead. And let's just say that this was not normal fan admiration. He didn't just see Clementine as a fake character, but an actual real person. Someone not only to protect, but also to avenge. And even more disturbingly, he felt intrinsically bonded to her. I mean, this guy would quite literally write about her in his journals, not only as if she were real, but also like she needed him. And if that wasn't strange enough already, he actually saw himself as her hero, and he was ready not only to save her, but to kill for her. Now, emotional intensity aside, the thing that made this so deeply troubling wasn't only the fact that she wasn't a real person, but it was that she was a child. And knowing what kind of predator Nicholas is, I'm sure you can connect the dots here. Now, of course, this sick obsession would show not only how far detached from reality Nicholas was becoming, but also how dangerous he could be. The question now is, how far would he go? So, circling back to the clip at the beginning of this video, you may have connected the dots by now. Nicholas saw himself as Clementine's protector, and when he saw his sister play The Walking Dead in front of him, and then, in the video game, choose to kill someone in front of Clementine, well, bizarrely, this sent Nicholas into a rage, therefore leading him to make this video in full.
On June 30th, my sister decided to make the only correct choices in episode 1 of season 1 of The Walking Dead games, and for that her face will be mutilated further than necessary. I also recall a video by Living Echoes on YouTube, Best of Lee and Clementine Definitive Edition. It was a compilation, and he decided to kill Larry in front of Clementine, and then I later learned he decided to kill the St. John's in front of Clementine. I am the chosen one, chosen by Clementine. I am guided, as Christians are guided by Jesus Christ. And there will be no more killings of Larrys in front of Clementine, no more killings of St. John's in front of Clementine. And overall, Clementine's content will be preserved, maximised. That's the message I want to give out.
Oh my God, man. Now that I got the context of what the freak he talking about right there, this man is like one of those ones for real. And I already said it, but I gotta say it again. And I was talking about on being a wannabe serial killer, but he one of those ones that is elfed up in the elfin head, Bean Team. This man is taking a freaking character and really looking at her is real. Like he really think Clementine was a little girl that seen these people get killed. I know who Larry was. That was the dad who had the freaking heart problems, and you can decide to kill him in front of Clementine or not. Then I think the St. John's would have freaking come to find out they were freaking cannibals at the farm, and you can kill them in front of Clementine or not. But he taking all this stuff like it's real life. Wow. That's all I got to say. Let's go.
While Nicholas spent his nights buried in violent fantasies and his days slipping into further isolation, life would carry on for the rest of his family at home. It is easy to forget that, at the time, he was still living with his mother and his 2 younger siblings. And although their household was far from picture perfect, Juliana was doing everything that she could to hold it all together. Life as a single mother can be tough, but at least Raymond was around for his children from time to time. Juliana did seem to notice the troubling signs that both teachers and classmates had started seeing at school. Not only was her son becoming distant and withdrawn, but he was increasingly difficult to reach. And this was especially noticeable after the year 2022, once he transitioned into college. As we know, that brief chapter would end quite abruptly once he was expelled, and whatever hope she had for him regaining structure or direction would quickly slip away. But in the background, Juliana was working full-time to support her family, and despite everything, strongly stood by her son. She loved Nicholas deeply, and she wanted to help him. And so, with that in mind, both she and Raymond agreed to refer him to local mental health services. From the outset, autism was strongly suspected. Nicholas struggled with social situations, recoiled from group interaction, and often seemed to be uncooperative in lessons. However, no official diagnosis was ever made. He resisted the process entirely. It was quite clear that he didn't want any help whatsoever, and maybe he believed that he didn't need it. As the people around him began to silently worry, he was thinking only of one thing: September the 13th. His preparations were now picking up speed, and there was no sign of slowing down. September the 12th, 2024. For most families across England, it was just an ordinary Thursday night, the humdrum final hours of a working week before the weekend. But inside the quiet apartment home in Enfield, North London, something far more sinister was unfolding. After having taken possession of a shotgun and 2 boxes of cartridges only one day prior, Nicholas was now armed and dangerous. Throughout the evening, and while his family slept only rooms away, he sat behind his computer screen obsessively researching. It was during this evening that he spent an entire hour reading about the impact of shotgun injuries to the neck. It was becoming clear that not only was this supposed to be the weapon used to kill other people, but also the very one that he planned to die by. However, his browser history did not stop there. Throughout the night, he read more case studies of school massacres, viewed reports on the murder of Sarah Everard, and then, chillingly, began to look at images of necrophilia. At 4:11 AM, and while the rest of the house remained silent, he sat in the dark watching extreme animated pornography. Half an hour had passed, and then at 4:42 AM, the last images he looked at were photos from school shootings, with Columbine being among them. It was kind of like he was trying to soak himself in the horror one final time, a ritual and a farewell before his own final actions. He then began to prepare his bag, loading both the weapon and ammunition inside. His plan was to leave at dawn, make his way to his old primary school, and then unleash his unspeakable violence. However, what Nicholas didn't count on was that only hours before his departure, he would be confronted by his own mother, Juliana. You see, Juliana had woken early, and what she found would change everything. And in that moment, Nicholas crossed a violent line that he could never come back from. Only a few seconds later, next-door neighbours who were on the other side of the wall and below them could hear a severe disturbance. They had no idea what was going on, but of course we know that Juliana was being attacked. Her son, that being the boy that she had raised and nurtured for so many years, was now preparing for murder. And tragically, his mother was on that list. That is when he raised his gun and shot his own mother point blank in the face. Juliana tragically died instantly, her body collapsing in the hallway. It isn't clear if he did this immediately after or a few minutes later, but he would then place a book on her legs, and that book was titled How to Kill Your Family. His 9-year-old sister Giselle must have woken up from the gunshots because only moments later she got out of bed and started walking towards the hallway. That is when Nicholas saw her from across the room and fired towards her. Giselle had no idea what was going on, but what she did know is that she was now terrified of her brother, and that is when she ran into the living room and tried to hide behind furniture. But to Nicholas, this was all part of the plan, and so he followed her. And when he found her, he raised the gun to her right eye and fired. Meanwhile, his brother Kyle tried to do something a little bit different. He ran towards the kitchen and armed himself with a knife, but this seemed to only anger Nicholas further. Nicholas then shot Kyle in the chest, but this did not kill him. Instead, he grabbed the kitchen knife off his brother and stabbed him more than 100 times. Damn. By the way, a number of stab wounds would indicate that this homicide was extraordinarily emotionally charged, and so Nicholas was likely furious with his brother. And if you're wondering, Nicholas stabbed him in the face, head, neck, torso, and all over his limbs. He really did not hold back here. Despite the severe trauma and while being stabbed, Kyle would then drag himself into the hallway where he saw his own mother's body. And then, in that final second, Kyle raised the shotgun and shot him in the head too. At 5:29 AM, the first call was made to emergency services. Police arrived on the scene 21 minutes later at 5:50, and by 6:08 AM, officers had forced entry into the apartment. What they found inside was a blood-soaked nightmare. Blood was found across the walls, floors, and ceiling, and all 3 family members were confirmed dead at the scene. Detectives found several knives at the crime scene, all of which were bent out of shape. They would also find the book that Nicholas had left behind resting on his mother. But as for Nicholas himself and his shotgun, they were gone. A surveillance camera captured Nick leaving the flat at 5:33 a.m, only 4 minutes after the first call was made, and for the next 2 hours, he evaded the police like a worm. At 6:22, and while crouched in a bush near his flat, he posted a pre-recorded video to Facebook, that being the one about Clementine and his sister. By now, the area was swarming with police officers, and Nicholas realized that he was far too early for his plans because school hadn't even started yet. His timeline had shifted into unrealistic territory, and his plan was now falling apart. At 7:55 a.m, Nicholas left his hiding spot and walked down Birmingham Road towards a passing police car, which he flagged down with a raised hand. Here, officers noticed that his hands, clothes, and even his glasses were covered in blood.
Okay, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which later on in court, anything you do say may be given as evidence. What road are we on? Birmingham Road. 426, priority. Birmingham Road, I think we've got the offender.
Do y'all hear this fool or see that caption? This man sitting up here talking about it's not murder. He done repeated that shit 3 times since we start seeing and listening to this body cam footage. If it ain't, you right, it's not murder. It's murder time 3 or murder times a million. Seriously though, because that's your freaking family you did that to, dude. Your little 9-year-old sister, your brother, your mother, and then the way you did it, you stabbed your brother over 100 times. Like, dude, oh my God, this man right here. And like I said, rest in peace to those 3, but y'all know how I try to look at some type of bright side to it. At least he didn't get to that freaking school. Ain't no telling how many of them children he would have killed. I know that don't make what happened any better, but at least we can at least say that, I guess, Bean Team. I don't know. Oh my God, this man said it's not murder. Really?
It's not murder.
Yes, we've got a male here, he's presented himself to us. Can we just get another unit down here, please?
Nicholas believed that all the schools in the area would now be locked down, and so his plan was ultimately foiled. It was for this reason that he decided to surrender. But the reality is that life carried on as usual and no school had shut. This means that, technically, if he had tried, then he may have even succeeded in his plans. A knife was found in his pocket, and although he had abandoned his shotgun and all 33 cartridges, all of them were recovered along the route between the tower block and the school. He had also discarded 2 mobile phones along the way. But when police officers questioned Nicholas, he didn't seem distressed at all. In fact, he seemed to be quite cheerful. He made casual conversation with the police, and would even ask if the local schools had now gone into lockdown. It is noted that he showed no emotion, no panic, no mental breakdown, and no stress. He seemed to be just a calm, collected young man, proud of what he had achieved, but also disappointed that his plans hadn't gone further. Moving into the legal proceedings of this case, Nicholas was charged with 3 counts of murder and a whole range of other charges too, including illegal possession of a shotgun and forging a certificate to buy one. It is worth highlighting here that during their investigation, officers would find hundreds of indecent images of children on Nicholas's phone, but due to the severity of the other crimes he was facing, no additional charges were issued. Which I do find weird and incredibly frustrating, because if you're found with incriminating evidence, then surely you should be held accountable regardless, right?
True.
Well, unfortunately, you'll soon learn that this is only the first frustrating decision made by the judiciary system. More on that in a moment. Similar to many other British cases that I've covered which include young men, Nicholas gave very little away in his interview the following day. And if you forgot what that looks like, here it is.
Did you kill them?
No comments.
Police got called there to a disturbance and found your mum, brother and sister dead. Explain to me what happened.
No comments.
Did you kill your mum, brother and sister?
No comments.
Is it your shotgun?
No comments.
Is that a shotgun that was used to kill your mum and your brother and sister?
No comments.
I mean, I can confirm that this knife was taken from you by police officers, okay?
No comments.
Why did you have that knife in your pocket?
No comments.
It's obviously covered in blood. Whose blood is that?
No comments.
Have you stabbed someone with that knife?
No comments.
When police got there and found your mum, your brother and your sister, on your mum, or right next to her, is a book called How to Kill Your Family. Have you ever seen a book with a cover like that at your home address?
No comment.
Did it belong to you?
No comment.
Or did it belong to someone else living there?
No comment.
Have you ever touched that book? Because it was found right next to your mum.
No comment.
Was it just a coincidence that your mum fell where that book was?
No comment.
Have you read that book?
No comment.
Book with that title was right next to your mum. Has it got any significance?
No comment.
Have you been planning how to kill your family?
No comment.
Did you get any tips from that book?
No comment.
After his arrest, Nicholas didn't only confess to the killings, but he also revealed something far more chilling. While speaking with a mental health nurse in custody, he calmly explained that he'd spent the past year planning this massacre, and intended to leave 34 people dead, and then end with him taking his own life. He told the nurse that only 1 year prior, he had tried and failed to rob a gun dealer, and so, after going back to the drawing board, he forged a gun certificate instead. I mean, the fact that this even worked is horrifying. Yet, even still, that is not the worst of it. He admitted that his original plan before the school shooting was to kill his family first while they slept.
Wow.
And if that wasn't enough already, he also planned to sexually assault his very own sister. I mean, that's not just evil, that is outright disgusting. Genuinely, it's the kind of confession that will really make your stomach turn. Once his family were dead, Nicholas then said that he would have left the flat around 8:30 in the morning, arrived at St. Joseph's Primary School by 9 AM, and then enter a classroom and pretend to rob the teachers before then doing his deed.
And see, that's what I'm saying, Bean Team. It's bad what happened. Rest in peace to his sister, brother, and mother. But it could have been a lot worse. You know what I'm saying? This man had way more on his mind than how it ended up happening, man. And then this whole no comment thing, just no comment, no comment, no comment. It just shows you how much of just a cold-hearted, cold-blooded killer he was. He don't give a F. He don't care at all for what he done did.
But as we know, in the early hours of that morning, something that he never anticipated happened. His mother woke up early and interrupted his plans. And just like that, his grand scheme was thrown off course. If you think about it, her waking up early is probably one of the most tragic things that could have ever happened to her. But in doing so, she likely saved dozens of children's lives. And on that note, I really do believe that we should remember Juliana not as a victim, but a hero instead. While on trial, it came out that Nicholas had already been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. But the judge would make it very clear here, this diagnosis did not prevent him from understanding the nature of his actions. It was evident that he knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, he had quite literally been planning this for over a year. As always, I think it's important to clarify here that autism does not mean that someone is violent or lacks empathy. Millions of people live with autism, and they are no more likely to commit violence than anyone else. At his first court appearance back in September of 2024, his father Ray shouted something that shocked everyone who stood nearby. While Nicholas was being led out of the courtroom, he shouted, "I still love you, son. It's not your fault, okay?" before then breaking into tears. Now, I understand a parent's love, but seriously, not his fault? I don't care how deep your love runs. There are some things that cannot and simply should not be excused.
Hell no. See, the father saying something like that make me think he got something to freaking do with it. What type of shit is that for you to say? It's not your fault. And he done murdered. Let's go. Let's go. That's some BS what his father said.
February the 24th, 2025, Nicholas Prosper pleaded guilty to multiple charges. Again, that including illegally purchasing a firearm, the murders of his mother Juliana Falcon, his sister Giselle, and his brother Kyle, as well as possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life and possession of a bladed article. Nicholas later refused to attend court for a sentencing, which in turn would delay proceedings until the judge had finally had enough and ordered him to appear. And on March the 19th, 2025, justice, at least in part, was served. As a result, Nicholas Prosper was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 49 years behind bars. But even still, that was not enough for the public, and it sparked outrage across the nation. Since then, his sentence has been referred to the Attorney's General Office for reconsideration. This process is still ongoing, and so there is a real chance that his sentence may be extended. And honestly, I really do hope this happens. This monster should spend the rest of his life behind bars. I mean, here are the facts. Nicholas is a triple murderer. He wanted to kill 34 more other people, bought a shotgun to do so, and had hundreds of indecent images of children on his phone. That kind of sounds like the person who should be kept away from society for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Don't you think? And this case leaves us with more than just horror, but questions too. Questions like, how did Nicholas slip through the cracks without anyone noticing? And I'm not just talking about how he actually managed to get hold of a shotgun in the UK, but also his long and terrible history on the internet. Honestly, how did nobody realize this? As a second thought, it really does make you realize how unfiltered and unmoderated the internet can be. This is also a reminder that mental health awareness is not just about support, but prevention too, because sometimes recognizing the red flags can quite literally save lives. Before we end this story, I do want to take a moment to remember the lives that were lost here. Juliana Falcon was a mother, a woman who worked hard, loved fiercely, and was simply trying to guide her children through life. Her 16-year-old son, Kyle, had his whole future ahead of him, and Giselle, who was only 13 years old at the time, was still discovering who she was. All three of them were innocent, and they were taken far too soon by someone they loved in the most brutal way imaginable. Neighbors described Juliana as someone who lived for her children. Teachers at Lee Manor High School described Giselle as a beautiful soul and a model pupil. And a friend described Kyle, who was passionate about football and boxing, as really nice, confident, and welcoming. It is crucial to remember here that these three were not merely victims. They were a family, a mother and her two children, who all deserved safety, love, and a future.
Man, that shit right there just hit hard, man. Just hearing the Coffee Man talk about all three of them and just remembering not only are they victims, but this is a whole family who was lost. And they was lost due to another sibling. Like, think about the years that they grew up together. This lady had these three kids, and I said the youngest, the daughter was 9 earlier. I got that confused. She was 13, but all these years they done grew up in the same household, not knowing that one day our brother, my son, is gonna be the reason our whole family is ended. That's so, man, lost for words, crazy.
Ironically, Nicholas wanted the world to remember him as some sort of evil and dark Columbine killer, but instead, they will just remember him as some weird, sick individual who is obsessed with cartoon characters. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and so concludes the end of this video. But before I go, I'd love to know what you think about this one, because there is a lot to unpack here. To begin with, what do you think about Nicholas Prosper, and what do you think his family could have done to help prevent him from falling so far? As always, please share your thoughts in the comments down below. Anyway folks, I'm going to wrap this video up here because I can see the battery's dying yet again. On that note, I'll be back again next week for another video, and I'll probably try something a little bit different, so keep your eyes peeled. Thank you again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. Use my link, nordvpn.com.
We're gonna end it right there, Bean Team. Coffee Man going back to NordVPN. Shout out to nordvpn.com/coffeehousecrime. But as far as this story, y'all, this one here, it's so tragic on so many ends. I was just talking about just the whole family aspect of why it's tragic, but it's also tragic in the case of just how freaking mentally ill this Nicholas dude really was. And I can talk about the Clementine thing. I can talk about the fact of how cold-blooded he was. I can talk about the fact of how gruesome the murders was. I can talk about the fact that he had been preparing for this ish for over a year. Like, this was premeditated times a whole year. You know what I'm saying? Murder, Bean Team. Like, dude been preparing for this. And I can also talk about how even more worse that it could have been, even though it was bad enough. Like, man, this was one of those ones, Bean Team. I think that's my 3rd or 4th time saying that. Like, this most definitely was one of those ones. And it was a good time, though, coming back to the Coffee Man. Coffee Man still putting on, y'all. My first time reacting to him, and I probably think maybe like a little over a month. But we most definitely gonna have to come back to the Coffee Man more often. And I appreciate y'all being here as always. And I digress. With that being said, Bean Team, I'm gonna let y'all go. And before you leave, just please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And remember this: love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.
If you're feeling lonely today, come along and throw your cares away. We're really glad that you're our friend, and this is a friendship that'll never ever end.
Run.